Interesting week next week then. Thank you very much for now, Jonathan Blake at Westminster. And let's stay with this and speak to Alastair McCapra, who is Chief Executive of the Chartered Institute of Public Relations. He represents lobbying firms around the UK. Hello, good evening.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Well, it'd be interesting to hear your perspective, because do you represent firms, individuals who would be actively really interested in employing MPs? What's your take on all of this?
Well, our take is that serving legislators shouldn't be involved in lobbying. There are various organisations which may find it beneficial to have MPs on their boards or in other roles, but they shouldn't be undertaking lobbying on behalf of those firms.
Where then do businesses, corporations get their steer as to government thinking? Because that is what public affairs is all about, for a firm to try to understand where's the lie of the land, legislation that might affect them and so on. How do they get that information?
Well, they could get it from a professional public affairs consultant. They don't necessarily have to get it from a serving MP. The advantage of getting it from an independent professional is there isn't any conflict of interest, potential or actual, with their role as a legislator. But I think the distinction that you've just alluded to is the important one. I think it's one thing to have people to advise you on, as you say, the lie of the land, what the government's going to be interested in, what you might need to head off. And then it's a different thing to have that same individual actually going and arguing your case with the government. I don't think that's a proper thing for MPs to be doing at all.
But there is absolutely that distinction, of course, and the rules make that clear as well, which is why the Geoffrey Cox case is different to the Owen Paterson case. I mean, would people employ former MPs perhaps and special advisors to MPs, those sort of people?
Yes, they do. But again, I think it's useful. It just seems that the whole state of affairs is very unsatisfactory, and it really seems about time for a quite radical overhaul. There was a big change in the public mood around the time of the Cash for Questions scandal many years ago, and a number of changes were brought in ostensibly to improve public trust in Parliament and in our democratic process. And I don't think anybody would look at the state of affairs this week, or in recent years, and say that had been achieved. I think whatever the rules are, whether they're being followed or not, they're not sufficient to give public confidence that we require.
That's interesting. I'm sorry we can't talk longer, but that is an interesting point on which to end about the rules and where they are now. Thank you so much. Alastair McCapra, Chief Executive of the Chartered Institute of Public Relations.